Seeing people for who they really are. Every day, we interact with people who seem polite, confident, even admirable. But how often do we stop to ask, is this the real person or just a performance? In a culture that prizes image, charm, and social polish, it's easy to miss the small cues that reveal someone's true character. That's not just a philosophical question, it has real consequences for who we trust, work with, or build relationships with. So how can we tell who's genuine? The answer isn't complicated. In fact, to everyday behaviors offer a clear window into someone's core values. These aren't hidden or abstract traits. They show up in how a person acts when no one's watching or when there's nothing to gain. First, consider how someone treats people who can't do anything for them. This isn't about grand gestures, it's about how they speak to a server, how they treat a janitor, or whether they acknowledge a stranger who needs help. Are they patient and kind, or dismissive and irritated? Research in social psychology shows that when people interact with those who hold less power, their masks tend to drop. Ask yourself, do I treat everyone with respect or only when it benefits me? Second, look how someone handles promises, especially small ones. Keeping a commitment even when it's inconvenient isn't about perfection. It's about consistency and integrity. Do they show up when they say they will? Do they follow through? People who keep their word build trust and credibility over time. And if they fall short, do they take responsibility or make excuses? Now ask yourself, am I reliable, even when it's hard? Let's take a closer look at each of these signs and what they might be telling us about others and about ourselves. How we treat those who can't offer us anything reveals who we really are. It's easy to be kind when there's something to gain. Most of us know how to put on a smile in front of a boss, a client, or someone we want to impress. But real character is revealed not when the stakes are high, but when no one's watching and when the other person has nothing to offer us in return. Psychologists often describe this as a character filter. When we interact with people who have no social power, a cashier, a janitor, a delivery driver, our responses are less strategic and more instinctive. That's why these small interactions are so revealing. They reflect not just manners, but our values, our empathy, and how we see others as human beings. Picture yourself in line at a crowded store. The clerk is clearly overwhelmed, maybe even makes a mistake with your purchase. Do you respond with understanding or impatience? That moment, small as it seems, reflects more than your mood. It reflects whether your respect for people is conditional or consistent. And how often do we stop to think about that? Our everyday behavior sends quiet signals. Holding the door for someone, making eye contact with a janitor, saying thank you to a bus driver. These aren't grand gestures. But when they're missing, people feel invisible. When they're present, they foster dignity. Are you contributing to that sense of dignity or taking it away without realizing? American culture often emphasizes achievement, independence, and results. But within that, we risk overlooking the importance of basic decency. There's a subtle difference between being polite and being genuinely kind. Politeness is a social skill. Kindness is a moral choice. Do we treat service workers with respect because it's expected in public, or because we truly value their work and presence? Behavioral science shows that people who consistently treat others with respect, regardless of status, tend to have stronger interpersonal relationships and better emotional health. Why? Because this kind of kindness is rooted in humility. It's not performative. It doesn't fluctuate depending on who's watching. It's part of who they are. We all have moments when we fall short. Maybe you've snapped at a barista after a rough morning, or ignored someone in need because you were running late. That's human. The question is not whether we've made mistakes, it's whether we've noticed them, and whether we try to do better next time. Self-awareness grows not from perfection, but from paying attention. Think back to your last 5 interactions with people in service roles. Were you present? Did you offer eye contact, a thanks, or a bit of patience? If not, why? Were you stressed, distracted, feeling rushed or entitled? The goal here isn't guilt, it's clarity. Ask yourself, do I treat everyone with the same baseline of dignity, or only those whose approval or help I want? If I were in their position, how would I want to be treated? If someone watched me in these moments, what would they learn about my values? There's also a deeper layer to this reflection, what these behaviors reveal to ourselves. About ourselves. When we act with quiet empathy, we're not just making someone else's day better. We're reinforcing our own self-image as someone who chooses respect. And that choice, repeated, builds real confidence, not the kind based on success, but on self-trust. It's easy to underestimate the power of a small act, but think about the last time someone held the door for you or made you feel seen in a tough moment. It probably didn't change your whole life, but it might have changed your day. And when we string together days where people feel seen, valued, and respected, we start to shift the culture we live in. So the invitation here is simple, but not easy. Pay attention to how you behave when there's no benefit. How do you treat the person delivering your food when they're late? What tone do you use with someone cleaning your office? How do you speak to someone who's made a mistake in a job most people ignore? And more importantly, are you willing to course correct when you catch yourself falling short? These aren't huge sacrifices. They're seconds of attention, moments of grace. But over time, they shape both the world around us and the kind of people we become. So if you want to know someone's true character, start by watching how they treat those who can't give them anything. And if you want to build your own, start by making those moments count. But just as our character is revealed in how we treat others, it's equally visible in how we honor the commitments we make both to others and to ourselves. The power of keeping promises and what it says about who you are. Keeping a promise may seem like a simple act, but it holds deep meaning. It's a reflection of integrity, reliability, and respect, not only toward others, but toward yourself. In everyday life, the promises we make can be big or small, formal or casual. But whether it's showing up on time, calling someone back, or sticking to a commitment, the way we follow through says a lot about our character. Psychologically, promises are more than words. They create expectations and build emotional contracts. When someone makes a commitment, even informally, the other person begins to count on it. If the promise is broken, it may cause more than inconvenience. It can create disappointment, mistrust, or even emotional distance. Have you ever felt hurt not because of what someone did, but because they said they would do something and didn't? In a work context, it might look like telling a colleague, "I'll get that to you by tomorrow," and then missing the deadline without explanation. In a friendship, it might be promising to attend a birthday party, then canceling last minute. In both cases, the issue isn't always the missed task or event. It's the feeling that someone's word didn't mean much. Now ask yourself, when I make promises, do I truly intend to keep them? Or do I say what's easy in the moment and hope for the best later? There's also a second, equally important layer: promises we make to ourselves. Think about the goals you've set: waking up earlier, saving more, exercising regularly, spending less time on your phone. These self-commitments matter just as much. Each time you follow through, even in a small way, you reinforce your sense of self-discipline and trust. But each time you back out, you chip away at your own confidence. According to psychologist Albert Bandura, following through on your intentions strengthens what he calls self-efficacy, the belief that you can make things happen through your actions. Without that belief, motivation fades. It becomes easier to procrastinate or give up, not because we're lazy, but because we've trained ourselves not to believe our own promises. So what gets in the way? Often, it's not a lack of good intentions. It's overpromising. Many of us say yes too quickly out of habit, guilt, or a desire to please. We underestimate how long things will take or how much energy we'll have. The result is a string of broken commitments, not because we're dishonest, but because we weren't realistic. This damages trust just the same. Think of a time when you agreed to something and instantly felt regret. Maybe you said yes to help with a project at work, even though you were already overwhelmed. Maybe you told a friend you'd meet for lunch, even though you knew your schedule wouldn't allow it. Why did you agree? Was it pressure? Was it the fear of saying no? These moments are opportunities to pause, to be honest with others and with ourselves. Saying no is sometimes the most respectful thing you can do, because it shows that when you do say yes, it means something. It tells people you're dependable. And just as important, it teaches you that your own word has weight. But even with the best intentions, life happens. Emergencies, burnout, shifting priorities, they're all part of being human. What matters is how we respond when we can't follow through. Do we communicate clearly? Apologize sincerely? Offer another way to make it right? Or do we avoid the situation, hoping it will fade on its own? One of the most powerful ways to build trust in any relationship is to be accountable, even when things go wrong. Research in emotional intelligence shows that owning a mistake without blame or avoidance builds respect. It signals maturity, and it gives others permission to do the same. Now, reflect again. When I break a promise, do I take responsibility, or do I minimize it? Do I act like it doesn't matter, or do I acknowledge the impact it may have had? These questions aren't meant to shame. They're meant to bring awareness. Because when we start noticing our habits, we can start shifting them. We begin to move from reactive behavior to intentional living. Keeping promises isn't about being perfect. It's about being consistent. It's about being someone others and you can count on. It doesn't require grand efforts. It starts with small, daily choices. Before committing to something, pause. Ask, can I realistically do this? Am I saying this to feel better right now, or because I truly mean it? When I make a promise, am I ready to follow through even if it gets hard or inconvenient? And just as importantly, ask yourself, what promises have I made to myself lately? Have I kept them? If not, why? What can I do today, even in 5 minutes, to begin rebuilding that self-trust? There's dignity in being someone who follows through, not because others are watching, but because it aligns with who you want to be. When you treat your word as something valuable, not flexible, not disposable, others will too. And that creates a ripple effect, stronger relationships, clearer communication, and a grounded sense of personal integrity. In the end, being someone who keeps promises doesn't mean saying yes all the time. It means saying yes when you mean it, and no when you need to, and standing by your word either way. That's not about being nice. It's about being real. And in today's world, real is rare, which is exactly why it matters. Taken together, these quiet behaviors, how we treat others and whether we keep our word, shape the kind of person we are becoming every day. Small actions, lasting impact. The way we treat others and the promises we keep may seem like small things, but they shape how we show up in the world and who we become. Character isn't built in the spotlight. It's built in the quiet, often unnoticed moments that reveal what we truly value. When we choose kindness toward people who can't offer us anything, we practice empathy without ego. A smile to the person bagging your groceries, saying thank you to a rideshare driver, or simply listening to someone who's often ignored. These are not just niceties. They're signals of respect, and they speak volumes about what we believe every person deserves. At the same time, honoring our commitments, especially the small ones, tells others they can trust us and reminds us we can trust ourselves. Following through on what we say or taking ownership when we can't is a quiet but powerful act of integrity. In a world where attention often goes to who talks the loudest, those who follow through quietly stand out. So pause and ask yourself, what does my daily behavior say about who I am? Am I living in a way that reflects my values, or just reacting to convenience and comfort? Do I give others my full attention, or only when there's something in it for me? The good news is that change doesn't require a big moment. It starts with small, consistent choices. And those choices over time can shift how we're seen, how we relate to others, and how we see ourselves. When we lead with kindness and live with integrity, we don't just become better people who make the spaces around us better too.